Doctors were given a choice. Option A, a surgery with a 90% survival rate. Option B, a surgery with a 10% mortality rate. Same surgery, same numbers, same outcome. But 84% of doctors chose the surgery when it was framed as survival, and only 50% chose it when framed as death. These are trained medical professionals making life-or-death decisions, and the words on the page changed their minds. Now here's what's wild. You think you're immune to this. You're not. And by the end of this video, I'm going to show you a version of this trick so subtle that even knowing about it won't fully protect you. But first, let's break down what's actually happening inside your head. This is called the framing effect, and it's one of the most powerful cognitive biases ever documented. The core idea is deceptively simple. The way information is presented, the frame around it, changes how you evaluate it. Not the information itself, just the packaging. And your brain treats the packaging as if it were the product. Think about that for a second. You pride yourself on being rational, on weighing the evidence, on making good decisions. But the framing effect says that the same evidence, presented two different ways, will lead you to two completely different conclusions. Not because you're stupid, because you're human. The landmark research came from Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky in 1981. Their study is one of the most cited in all of behavioral economics. They called it the Asian disease problem. Here's how it worked. Participants were told that 600 people were at risk from a deadly disease. Group 1 got this choice. Program A saves 200 people. Program B has a 1/3 chance of saving everyone and a 2/3 chance of saving no one. Most people picked A, the sure thing. Save 200 lives. Done. But Group 2 got the same scenario with different words. Program C means 400 people will die. Program D has a 1/3 chance that nobody dies and a 2/3 chance that everyone dies. Now most people pick D, the gamble. Do the math. A and C are identical. B and D are identical. The only thing that changed was whether the outcome was described in terms of lives saved or lives lost. And that tiny shift in language completely flipped people's preferences. But here's something most people miss about this study. It wasn't just that framing changed preferences. It reversed them. People went from risk-averse to risk-seeking based on nothing more than word choice. Kahneman and Tversky used this to develop prospect theory, which eventually won Kahneman the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2002. The core insight: losses loom larger than gains. We feel the pain of losing something about twice as intensely as the pleasure of gaining the same thing, and framing exploits this asymmetry like a crowbar. So where does this show up in your actual life? Everywhere. And I mean everywhere. Walk into a grocery store. You see ground beef labeled 90% lean. Feels healthy, right? Now imagine the same package labeled 10% fat. Suddenly you're second-guessing your dinner plans. Researchers Irwin Levin and Gary Geith demonstrated this exact effect in 1988. People rated the meat as higher quality, better tasting, and less greasy when it was framed as lean versus fat. Same beef. Same cow, different words. Different experience. Or take medicine. A drug that works 95% of the time sounds great. A drug that fails 5% of the time sounds risky. Your doctor knows this. Pharmaceutical companies definitely know this. Every clinical trial result, every drug ad, every pamphlet in the waiting room is carefully framed to nudge you in a specific direction. And then there's the big one: money. Would you drive 20 minutes across town to save $5 on a $15 calculator? Most people say yes. Would you drive 20 minutes to save $5 on a $125 jacket? Most people say no. But $5 is $5. The time is the same. The savings are the same. The only thing that changed is the frame. You're evaluating the $5 relative to the total price instead of on its own terms. And that relative frame makes you act against your own interests. Now, let's talk about the dark side. Because the framing effect isn't just a quirky psychological phenomenon. It's a weapon. Political campaigns have weaponized framing for decades. Estate tax versus death tax, same policy. Completely different public support. Frank Luntz, the Republican strategist, literally wrote the playbook on this. He tested words and phrases in focus groups and found that renaming policies could swing public opinion by 20 or 30 percentage points. No new arguments, no new data, just new words. Media outlets do the same thing. Protesters versus rioters. Freedom fighters versus terrorists. Undocumented immigrants versus illegal aliens. Each pair describes the same people doing the same things, but the frame tells you how to feel about them before you've even processed the facts. Here's a thought experiment for you. Imagine a surgeon tells you there's a 5% chance you won't wake up from anesthesia. Now imagine a different surgeon says 95 out of 100 patients come through just fine. Which surgeon do you trust more? You know the numbers are the same. You know it's irrational to prefer one over the other. And yet something in your gut still responds differently. That's the terrifying part. Awareness doesn't equal immunity. Researchers have tested this. In a 2013 study published in the Journal of Behavioral Decision-Making, participants who were explicitly told about the framing effect, who understood the bias intellectually, still fell for it when the frames were emotionally charged. Knowing about the trap doesn't spring you from it. It just makes you feel worse about being caught. So why can't we override it? Because framing doesn't target your logic. It targets your emotions. Kahneman described two systems of thinking. System 1 is fast, automatic, emotional. System 2 is slow, deliberate, rational. Framing slips past System 2 and goes straight for System 1. By the time your rational mind catches up, your emotional mind has already made the decision. You're not analyzing the frame, you're reacting to it. And this brings us to something really uncomfortable. You are being framed right now. This video has a frame. Every video you watch has a frame. Every news article, every advertisement, every conversation with a friend who wants you to see things their way. Framing isn't something that happens to you occasionally. It's the water you swim in. So what can you actually do about it? First, when you face an important decision, reframe it yourself. If something is presented as a gain, flip it to a loss. If it's a percentage, convert it to raw numbers. A medication that's 99% safe also harms 1 in 100 people. Both are true. Seeing both gives you a fuller picture. Second, watch for emotional language. Anytime a choice is presented with words designed to make you feel something, that's a frame. Strip the emotion. Look at the raw data. Ask yourself, what would a spreadsheet say about this? Third, be suspicious of simplicity. Real decisions are messy and complex. If something feels clean and obvious, someone probably framed it that way. The cleaner the pitch, the harder you should look for what's been left outside the frame. And fourth, give yourself time. Framing works best under pressure. When you're rushed, tired, or emotional, System 1 is in full control. Slow down, sleep on it. The frame gets weaker the longer you look at it. Now remember that thing I promised you at the beginning. A version of framing so subtle that even knowing about it can't fully protect you. Here it is. Every question you've ever been asked is a frame. When someone asks, "Don't you think this is a good idea?" they've already framed the expected answer. When a survey asks, "How satisfied are you with our service?" instead of "How would you describe your experience?" the frame has already tilted your response toward the positive. The question itself is the manipulation, and you can't unhear a question once it's been asked. Your brain is already working within the frame before you even start thinking about your answer. That's the real power of framing. It doesn't change what you see. It changes the lens you see it through. And most of the time, you don't even know you're wearing glasses. If this made you think differently, subscribe. We post every week. And watch this next. We're diving into anchoring bias, the reason the first number you hear in any negotiation controls everything that comes after.